Hello. Okay. Today we're live on Instagram. It's being a huge pain. Hello. So I've made this necklace. And I love the AirPods going up and down, except when I'm trying to talk and also listen to music. It doesn't work, and that's sad. It's not made for ADHD brain in that way. All right, so I made this with this super pretty yarn, and I just attached it to this necklace, which then kind of proceeded to break. So I'll have to fix the clasp. I'll have to do something up there, but it still stays together. So now I steam it. Stretches your stuff, so it looks flat. So, which I'm not even done with yet. It's super tight because of the thick yarn that I used. So I have to steam it a lot and stretch it out. You need my shirt? Oh, you can get it if you go up to the link in my bio. I can probably just say the link in my bio on Instagram, can't I? And it's in my disrespectful t-shirts. You will find it. No, I still can't go live on TikTok. They kicked me off for a week because they said hate speech. I was making joke. I was doing this. And I got kicked off for hate speech. And I have a new account because I'm jumping again. And it's up to the amount of, well past the amount of people that I'm supposed to be able to go live. And I don't have that ability. Up to yeah, and I need to figure out how to sell the collars on the other platforms, or how to get my Shopify products into Instagram, something. Anyways, you just these this one I just finished up. Oh yeah, I have to show the jump speech. It is the opposite of hate speech, and I got kicked out of the creator program on TikTok for a month for unoriginal content. Because there's so many people knitting on the internet and talking about cults and the military. Thank you so much for reading my book or listening to my book. Even better. That was hard. It was the hardest thing I've done in 5 days was recording that. And yes, I'm going to have an audio for Culting of America. I'm going to give myself more than 5 days. It's also going to be in Spanish, but I will not be recording the audio of that because I am not a native Spanish speaker. But you can see my Portuguese Spanish readings with my gringa accent on here all the time. But yeah, I mean, I'm on my 9th TikTok account. I would probably easily have 1 or 2 million followers. And I say this because now, anytime I go out around 100 or more Americans, somebody is like, oh my gosh, I know you from TikTok. So it's been interesting. Last night in our podcast, Cults and the Culting of America, we intended to talk to Scott, who is a white man from the Pentecostal something, UPCI. Okay. United Pentecostal Church International. He's my co-host. And yeah, it is people reporting on me. And we were supposed to talk about his book and his process of writing, into him ranting about how racist cults are, which is great. I'm always down for a good white guy rant about racism. So, and it'll air next week. Yeah, people don't get that cults are good at what they do, right? People are always like, well, this can't be a cult because it works. I'm like, yeah, cults tactics work. That's why all your business leaders want to learn them. I feel like that's what organizational psychology school is. Any thoughts on Ukraine targeting Russia? I mean, I think it's smart. Can't can't talk about drones. The only thing I can tell you about drones, I was one of the drone manager for my brigade, and also there might have been a book on drone, but that's all I can say because that's in my unclassified evaluation. All right, so this one is getting better. So I feel like it's kind of funky. Might be too ridiculous even for me. But then part of me is like, can I just keep going and add more layers and then eventually make it like a tie back shirt? I think I probably can. So I think that's probably what I'm going to do. Like end up being like one of those bandana shirts that we all wore to clubs when we were like 18, right? So it's a good idea to like steam or soak and then block your products, because then that gives you an idea of what they're actually going to be like when they settle into their stuff. Luna, love good vibes. I love that. When we were deployed, then the soldiers were giving everyone Harry Potter names, and they were like, "You're Bellatrix," and I was like, "No, I'm Hermione." But you're right, I'm definitely Luna Lovegood. Phoebe Buffet, like all the best characters. Oh, and I got all these tassels, some neon tassels. So make something fun with that. Oh, I could probably make some good tassel earrings to go with this. A very fancy poncho. Yeah. Yeah. Anyways, this was the collar of like an Indian shirt that I was like adopted by a Punjabi Indian family in college. So I make very good chai. Oh yeah, and I made a little bracelet to match that one by putting something onto it. See, I feel like my favorite way to do art is take something somebody else already made and then just add stuff to it. Oh, that might be like, no, those are fine. I mean, every generation ever has told themselves that the world is about to end. Like, I think there's a lot of apocalypsia in the American psyche, especially. I had to tell my scientist husband, he's like, there's nothing we can do for global warming. I was like, babe, when the world paused for COVID for like 3 months, like the planet started healing. Like, there is stuff we can do. We're just going to have to decide to do it. If we don't put limits on online shopping, we're just going to drown ourselves in plastic. Right. That's going to be the question. Are humans able to, like, I think in America, so like Japan, for example, or some collectivist cultures are better at like everyone else's life is a little more sucky so that the greater good is there. So like, for example, in Japan, everyone just stands in line and waits to get on the train. And that's not what getting on the metro is like in America. China is, pretty much taking over right now. We're doing this right now with China. Okay, we thought we were faster than you, but now you're winning the race. Okay. So I'm just going to keep adding to that. The next row is going to be orange. Okay, do these earrings. There's got to be a way on here, right, to like pull make the want to make the comments more like available to me, but I don't know how that works. Hello, hello, hello. Thanks for the living of my content. Yeah, and I finished the book, which is kind of how the platform started. Obviously, you have to be on the internet as an author. Like, they expect you to sell your book and blah, blah, blah. But I was just I'm not good at this. And then when I got ready to do Culting of America, so 2.5 years ago, I sat down and was I'm going to write this huge research book. And I was oh, maybe other people want to know some of this stuff. I literally was my life is fascinating and I'm about to do a big research project. So maybe people want to know stuff. And now I know that a really good way to sell your book is to just give away your expertise and then people will buy your book. But TikTok is by far the best marketplace, easiest to monetize, but it's I don't know, welcome to working for the Chinese government. I don't know. It's crazy. It'd be crazy over there. So, but if you're watching me on YouTube, then I also have in my shop the earrings and the fun stuff in addition to the book. I need to set about figuring out how to get everything synced to Insta. Anyways, this summer we're writing the musical. Okay, so I don't believe in good cults, right? So for me, cults are about labor. That is the most true thing, right? We all get stuck in the what, they did what, they believe what, and we don't get to the why, and the why is to get your labor. And I think cults are organized crime, and they're always bad, and they always hurt the individual. So I don't think you can have good cults. Now, I think we want the idea of people that are this dedicated to a cause and this willing to do anything for it. That's not healthy for people, right? So any version of good cult, you're still saying our mission is more important than you, the individual. That's what the military is, right? And nobody wants to have that discussion, but that's what the military is. We have all just decided that 1% of our country is going to be in a cult that harms them. And then we just throw them away when they get out, just like other cult survivors. And we're just not going to discuss it. It's the same thing with AA. They love calling themselves a cult. But as soon as an expert comes out and says, yes, you're a cult and you hurt people by definition, and they're what? How dare you? It's stop it. Everyone, this is what, I understand that my content bothers people, and it's because Americans want the extreme cults to be extremely different from the groups they're in, and they're not. Uncultured, my memoir was my first way of being you all think my life was so extreme, but let me just show you the Mormons and the evangelicals and extreme Catholics, this is what they want. This is the level of control they want, and they are getting in their thing. I think all of American society is under, I think it's 3 cult systems. It's capitalism, patriarchy, and white supremacy. And I don't know we can do outside of that. I don't know if there's an AA cult book. I have written a book called The Culting of America. And I show you my 10-part list of what makes a cult. And then I show you that in cults, in the military, and in groups around us. And my co-writer is an AA survivor. And the way I've pulled the military all the way through the examples, she's pretty much done that with AA. So we are going to have a pretty well-researched book that comes out on January 20th that talks a lot about how all this stuff you've experienced in AA is pretty culty, and that's probably why it rubbed you wrong if you didn't have a good experience. This is something else that I'm starting to talk about too. Why don't we have as many cult books from men about cults? I think it's because men don't have the worst experience. Women are a servant class in all cults. Cults are patriarchal by nature, right? Because they're about ownership and hierarchy and blah, blah, blah. Labor, which is how we measure power in America. And when you're like, yeah, these cults are, just like you, but it's the same in the military. Like my husband, who's a 6'2" blonde white pilot, had a relatively easy career in the military, even with 19 of his 20 years being while the nation was at war. Me, not being a 6'2" blonde male pilot, had a much harder career, even though I was only in for 6.5 years. Right. So then when it comes to like who writes the books, I mean, usually the people that had the worst experience. Right. And in every cult, there's a large base of people that only experiences the good stuff. And my problem is not that those people had a good experience. Like I'm always like, hey, Karen, nobody cares that you had a good AA experience. But like, why are you here trying to shut down the people who had a bad experience? Like your good experience is not more important than their bad experience. And someone was like, oh, so you show like the other side in your book too, right? And like, my book is showing you cult tactics, techniques, and procedures and where they show up in the rest of society. So no, I don't give you all the good AA stories, just like good AA books don't give you all the negative stories. Like people, this is part of like knowing your stuff, right? Like I wrote an idea book, Culting of America. It's great. It's amazing. It's 36-page bibliography researched, but it is me telling you my theory, right? I am guiding your thoughts in this book as much as I am in my memoir. This is not an unbiased research book. This is me saying, this is my theory about cults. This is everything that I'm basing it on, everyone that's gone before me. And this is where I think it shows up in these other places, right? Like it is, I purposefully chose to come live in the gap, what's called the scientist practitioner gap, right? There's a whole bunch of leadership research, but what happens at your companies is what Simon Sinek and Brene Brown and Danielle Messonnick-Young say, because we're the ones actually out here selling the books and reaching the market that needs to know that stuff. So how's everything going? Trump is still sucking and he's losing so hard. Oh, he's just losing so hard. Courts told him he has to put transgender back in everything. He can't restructure the government anymore. Like all of the checks and balances are holding. Everything we told you all about, like this, there's a reason the first 90 days, everybody is rushing everything through because it takes like minimum 90 days for the gears of the government pushing back to just start working. Anyways, he's losing so hard and it's so funny. And if you don't follow Amanda's Mild Takes on Insta or Chiki Chaki, that's probably how Brazilians say TikTok. Chiki Chaki. The U.S. Air Force is hyper-Christian. Yeah, it has been bad evangelical garbage land for quite a long time. Anyway. All right, here we go. These are the fuzzy logic earrings. So we have fuzzy logic earrings, we have fringe belief earrings, and then I have fishy logic earrings, the like mermaid tail ones. Yeah, I pity us for being American too. I'm always kind of low-key depressed that of everywhere I grew up and lived and experienced and things that make up who I am. Like I ended up being an American living in America, especially in the right now times. Okay. What? You want to say hi to the people? Yeah? Come on. He used to be his whole personality not to look at the camera, but now that he's a Republican, he's just always arguing that he needs like a makeup room. This is style, and while he's extremely adorable, he has the personality of your MAGA father-in-law. And we argue about it all the time He's always just like getting mad at other dogs for existing. He's out there talking about like welfare and grumbling about his taxes. He's like always on Signal chat with Pete Keg's breath. Yeah, like. And I just sold Knitting Hope Baby's first pair of French belief earrings. The one craft she decided to participate in with me a little bit. Yeah, you, senor. You are cute. We just wish you weren't a Republican. Our cult's more of a problem in America. I mean, we think so. However, it's always like hard to say because like American Western politicians, white Western politicians define cults. But I do think that like specifically in white America, we have given up community for whiteness, right? And like, you know, so I just had my DNA updated, right? Because they learn more. And I went from like 10% German to 30% German, and also a lot more Turkish in me than I knew of before. And I'm like, these are two places I studied abroad in Germany where I was like, oh, more people here look like me. Like I fit here more. And same with Turkey, right? Without knowing either of these things. Like as far as we knew, I was just Slovakian. But I have no connection to like any of these cultures, right? Because my family came away from that and just came into American whiteness. And so, you know, it's been interesting more and more. We were just talking about this on the podcast last night, where it's like, I used to just be like, all the things we're deconstructing, like millennials, and especially white millennial America is starting to deconstruct now on a large scale. And also like, that is what's happening in our government. I really think that folks that just had like nice childhoods with adults that didn't want to control them and use them for labor and stuff, like, and weren't religious extremists, like, don't understand that like this is our people in the government. Like that's what it is. It's cult leaders, the cult uncles and aunties have the government of America right now. Which also means I understand them very, very, very well. I don't know why he's a Republican though. I ordered a liberal dog. Like I really did. It was promising for a little while. But the Republicans got to him. And also, here's this. Calling my dog a Republican is anthropomorphic political satire. And it's awesome. Calling Republicans dogs or maggots is dehumanizing language. And it's usually the step before we unalive people. So like I had to turn the cult eye on myself and call myself out for saying maggots because, you know, it's catchy and clever, but like it's not cool. Anyway, that's why he's a Republican. Okay, what am I doing right now other than eating my cereal? Oh, and I'm gonna. So I invented this shirt. Oh, someone gave me a good name for it, but I don't know if I'm gonna remember it. Oops. I need to plug in. I must plug in the iPad. Now I must try to set you up here or something. Is it gonna work? Is it gonna hold? Hold the door. This is my koala for when people are being silly koalas. I'm sort of knitting. I'm just doing like craft homework to make these earrings for somebody. Let me finish doing that before I get distracted. So if anyone's any tutorials on knitting or crochet, now is a good time. It's funny because people are always like, can we ever see videos of what you post? And I think on both of these platforms, it comes up more often, but TikTok, I'm like, you just have to go to my playlist because like apparently the least interesting thing about my videos is the knitting content. So when I make that content, it like doesn't, nobody sees it. Being silly koala is because like you literally cannot say anything on TikTok. So I usually use it when people are like mill-splaining me or just not listening or like panicking about martial law. And I'm like, oh, stop being silly koalas. Because if you even just call someone silly, they will give you a violation on your content. And if you're a creator, they'll be like bullying. So I just call them silly koalas. Cats say they're independent. Oh, are they libertarians? Just like Republicans that don't want to commit. Girl, I started with crocheting. And okay, so Sunday was my birthday, 38. Thank you. I got a guitar. It's beautiful. Yesterday I learned how to tune the guitar. I'm not 100% sure it's tuned, but the little machine thing says it is. And I learned the E chord and the C chord, I think. So that was yesterday. I don't need $10,000 badly enough to shave my head. Silly koala. See, there's an example of how I would use it. So, like one of the things that I immediately ordered a hook to put it on the wall because one, I just live in a townhouse that's very full of stuff in every corner, but people say like don't put it in a case. Like you'll never take it out, you'll never get set up. Like that's always my problem with painting. I love painting. It's so fun, but like getting everything and getting it set up is the hardest time. Whereas I lived in one house where I had like a whole little space just for painting, and I could just go in there when I had 15 minutes. So, yeah. All right, so earrings. I got myself this seal for Christmas. And I think it's very interesting. It says from the Library of the Knitting Cult Lady. And there was like 10 pictures you could pick from. And one of them was crossed swords. So I picked the crossed swords. But like, it's kind of a psychological experiment because I don't think you see from Knitting Cult Lady and think of those as anything but knitting needles. And also, when we launch Culting of America, we are going to do custom knitting needles that are shaped like swords. I'm so clever. It was actually Knitting Cult Baby's idea. She's quite clever too. Okay, so that's yikes. This label might be ruined. Let's see what's happening here. Yeah, 10 minutes a day, exactly. Put the label on the front of the envelope. Okay. I've had coffee today. I can't say what's wrong with me. Okay, so I invented this kind of shirt where I just like have two squares and I attach it together here and together at the bottom. And you can like then just go up the sides and put sleeves on it. And I've made stuff like that. But you can also just make really giant fluffy sleeves. And so you're just kind of wearing like a tube. And I made a really pretty one. So I'm going to turn that. But first, with this, so this is a thing I cross-stitched, prepare to be amazed. It's a corner of a 1,000,000 stitch tapestry that I once thought I was going to do. And about 300,000 stitches in. I was like, so I'm kind of done. Anyway, so I've put this all on. So this is going to be the front, right? And then I'm going to do a back that's just a big fuzzy square. And then I'm going to sew it up the sides and put sleeves on. And it's just going to be and I've learned you all like me in a boat neck color. So yeah, it's a lot of stitching. I do cross stitch, but like, again, I have like a very intense cross stitch phase, which is also just its own, ADHD thing. Who knows if I'll come back to it, but it's just like too slow for me. Like I like to really just make a lot of stuff and have a bunch of wearable art. So that's what I'm up to. So I'm just going to pick what colors I'm using for the back. So I'm just going to do a blend of all these beiges and browns that I have to use up. Keep it all fuzzy on the back. And then for the sleeves, I'm going to do like orange that is a different kind of fuzzy yarn, but it's still going to be very fun. I'm actually like running through all the knit to-do projects very quickly because like so many of my projects, it's like I crochet part of it together and then I just have to knit. So I usually have like a big bulk of things to knit, but right now, how many did you think? And I might do orange into purple. I probably will, just for fun. I was going to do this as like a blue sky color kind of around the edge of it to make it a little bit bigger. I think I still might do that. And these will all be a different project. But look how fun this is. It's hard to see. There's all these colors in it. Oh, I don't have examples of like AA specifically trying to subdue other methods, but I know that AA has a very powerful lobby. I just haven't like been inside of that group enough. Also, the Children of God sang at the White House, and I don't know how that happened either. Oh, yeah. So I'm going to have like it a little bit tan, and then it's going to go into like orange and then purple. Oh, it's going to be so fun. Okay. These ribbon things I can use for something else. But I'm telling you, if you do a lot of crafting, man, thrift stores. Just like go on a regular rotation to thrift stores. Like I use scarves and yarn, and I just get bunches of them. And then when I have I rarely ever buy yarn on like Amazon or like online crap anymore, because I almost always just like have something that will work. And it's more, to me, it's more like artsy that way than like you're actually seeing things and putting them together instead of just like thinking in your head like, oh, I need this. It's also because my brain works in words, not pictures, probably. Okay, so that we're gonna go crochet around, but that's easy. So then this is just a piece of a scarf, but I'm gonna cut it in half and then use that to make a thing. And I don't know if I'll do teal sleeves or white sleeves or maybe teal into white. I'll just do like a big wide half sleeve. But first I'm going to, RFK he's a stepper and he's also a Scientologist, I believe. So he's just bonkers. But you know what? Like I have said for a long time that I think the military and the government like cult members because they're easy to control and manipulate. It's like, I kind of think like the brain once on extremism can always be brought back there fairly quickly. Or just like, in the military, I just called it like snapping back into cult mode. Like as soon as I was like on day one of basic training, I was like, oh, this is a cult. And I was like, all right, well, I'm going to be better than these suckers because I can just click right back into to cult mode, which is to say just like always, always, always tamping yourself down for the good of the group. You know, and someone asked me today, I forget how much it was on my TikTok account, but the video will be on here at some point. And they're like, so what's the AA version of sacrificing your children for the mission? And I'm like, being sacrificed for the mission, the easiest, I think, way to explain it is just like military kids, right? Like dad or mom's job always comes before birthday, Christmas, holiday, anything, right? So like my husband was active for 4.5 years after he had a baby, and he missed one Christmas and every Halloween, but no birthdays. And that was only because he was special operations and got to be a little bit more flexible with his deployments. But like just always being put, when parents' thing is always put in front of your thing, that's sacrificing for the mission. Oh, hey, Lizzie. I'm live on here because TikTok won't let me go live. They kicked me off of my big account for live. They said for hate speech as I was here doing jewelry homework. And my new accounts, I've gotten 2 accounts up to past 1,000 members, and they're not giving me the go live option. So I don't know what's happening. So I'm spreading my wings. Plus, I've been saying it's time to spend more time on Insta because other people know how to monetize it better than me. And I must learn. Okay. Things are a mess. I can't start with this much of a mess. Oh, yay. I'm glad you're on a crafting hyperfixation because of me. I take that responsibility. This is one of my, like, in the Army, we would call it like a third order effect. Like, doing it for this reason. I'm doing this to share my information about cults. The knitting keeps me calmer and keeps you more interested and hyperfixated. Second effect. And third effect, like, it's inspired tons of people to start doing stuff. So excited about that. And I love to hear about it. And like Michelle Obama and Kamala and AOC are all like crafting. Fiber arts is just where it's at. Plus, like, you put a hooked crochet hook like into a dude's arm, they gonna need surgery. Just saying. Crochet tips for the revolution. It's so funny because my husband, every once in a while, like we're going to graduation, you never know what the policy is going to be. He's like, maybe bring wooden needles instead of metal ones. And it's so funny because like my wooden needles are so sharp. I'm always puncturing the tip of my finger. I could easily stick that into someone. And the metal ones, no, they're just like rounded. Anyways. This one time in Australia, they definitely thought yarn needle plus breast pump equals terrorist. I got searched a lot. That was fun. It's like, no, I really just have a 3-month-old baby at home. I'm on a 6-day trip to Sydney. Yeah, because my boss is a jerk. Research Pentecostal cults. So, my co-host on Cults and the Culting of America, my podcast, is from the United Pentecostal Church International or something, UPCI, I think is what they call it. And we just talked yesterday. We didn't have a guest, and he just gave me an entire history of Pentecostalism in the US and the racism in it. And that was a whole bunch of stuff I didn't know. And that was very interesting. That episode will be airing next Tuesday, probably. Started a huge project finished in culture. Probably needed to get some crazy energy out. It's a bit intense, that book I wrote. This next book is less intense, but it might still give you a lot of personal realizations. It's also so interesting how like you process different books differently at different times. So like we did in book club this book called Jesus Land, which is about the Troubled Teen Institute and transracial adoption by religious extremists. But the first time I listened to it, I was like, my brain was breaking open because I was like, oh, I'm relating to this from both sides of my life. I'm relating to this from growing up in an extreme religious cult, and I'm relating to this from military training. Although, to be clear, the Troubled Teen Institute is much more inhumane than military training. But then the second time I read it, I was like, I don't remember there just being this much trauma that is happening to these children over and over the whole time. And I literally was like, well, like I have to push through listening to this because I'm the one that runs the book club. And I was like, well, we're going to see what happens. And like, sure enough, I ended up spending 5 days like this with a thing called Rhine neck. And that was like the clearest I ever saw the connection of like how trauma shows up in our body when we're just like being triggered and pushing through. And anyway, so all that to say, I have no idea what deconstruction triggers this next book will contain for you, because it is written like I'm an organizational psychologist, but I didn't write this book for the perspective of groups to be better, the groups I'm calling out to be better. It's literally to help the individual understand groups that have hurt them in the past, groups that are hurting them now, and avoid groups that might hurt them in the future. Like I don't really care about the groups at all. They could all come or go, in my opinion. Oh, hey, Lizzie. This is Lizzie, my talent manager. She tells me what to do. Speaking of that, we are going to have an event in Philly on the 12th. Things I need to plan. The 12th of June, the day before my 10th wedding anniversary, which is on Friday the 13th, which is definitely something that my Lord and Savior Taylor Allison Swift did just for me, just so I would know she loves me. Isn't it amazing? The power of worshiping 13. I did not get married on the 13th because of Taylor Swift. Let's just make that clear. How far into that cult I am or not. Okay. But I mean, I had already been a Swiftie for a decade, so who knows if I subconsciously made that choice. Swiftie would trigger with an agency hire, saw how it was connected to cult rules. See, and that, like, that's all it is. Like, and other people get so upset with my, because they're like, well, you don't want to hear anyone else, or you don't want to listen. And I'm like, I'm honestly not here to argue about cults. I don't care about the definition. I just wrote a whole book about it, but that's because you have to have a definition of cults to talk about cults. Maybe. But like, you know, one of the things I've learned from all my study is that almost every expert out there says that all cults are the same, ultimately, right? There's a way we coercively control people, and it's always the same. And that's why it's relevant to talk about things like white cults versus black cults and different things in our country, because the patterns are still there, even if the what is very, very different. And actually next month in Cult Book Club, we are reading The Community by Jamelia Chisholm about her time in the Nubian Nation. And it's, Black Muslim cult versus where I grew up, Children of God, white Christian cult. Never read a better description of my own childhood. I mean, including my own book, just because she stays there for so long. And so this leads me to the then natural conclusion to say, well, then that means that there's a generic cult baby experience. And then I realized, like, that's part of what I'm doing. That's part of the musical I'm writing, which is, I was saying like the Book of Mormon, but for all cult babies, right? Which leads me back to these things like if you've ever been told you're in the world, but not of the world, right? Cult baby experience. If you've ever been sacrificed for the mission, cult baby experience. If you have ever been used for your labor, cult baby experience. If you've ever been told that lying is sometimes okay in certain situations outside of like a limited surprise planning for somebody where the lies are going to be told quickly. Cult baby experience. The list goes on. If you ever had to sleep in a children's dorm, cult baby experience. If you were ever told that your parents would have to sacrifice you for the mission, or that you might have to give up your parents, and had Abraham traumatically agreeing to murder his child quoted at you, cult baby experience. Could cult mentality be considered to a PK kid? I think so, but I think a lot of the churches in America qualify as cults, like are the same as what was going on in Children of God, especially now that purity culture is so in everything. And like purity culture is the other side of the coin of pedo culture. It is the obsession with the schmexuality of children. Stop it with your incest balls and pledging your virginity to your father. Bonkers. There's a reason it all sounds like we're in the court of King Henry VIII. Which I've never not been obsessed with King Henry VIII and Tudor England since I was 18, because, I am an ADHD white girl, but I'm very obsessed with it all over again. Osho was a cult leader who took advantage of broke. Yeah. Cults pop up in times of social turmoil, when the world is confusing and loud, and somebody shows up offering clarity. And cults all make this same promise, which is we know the way to win the game of life. And if you follow this exact set of very strict rules, you can play. And after some space travel, we promise you enlightenment, right? Whatever their promise is. Oh my gosh, y'all. I'm done with the book that I spent 5 years writing. And I just can't even. My brain is just so relaxed. Now I'm working on a little workbook that's going to go along with Culting of America, and probably a little graphic novel, which can also be an adult coloring book. The workbook's going to have coloring pages in it all throughout. but it's going to have like the 10 sections that I go through in a cult, but like you're just doing it for like your life or your groups or whatever. And again, there's no like conclusion that you have to come to that like this group is a cult or it's not a cult, but like we get good information from comparing groups that we love to cults. This yarn is not the easiest to work with. Yeah, purity culture, I mean, it messes up everybody. And so, I've written about purity requirements in cults, and not just schmexual purity, but basically any black and white rule, right? Any version of like, we don't do this or we don't do that, or we don't put X in our bodies or our minds or our souls or our children's, right? Vaccination falls into purity rules very easily, as does some of these things that make us human, like the desire to change our state, alcohol, drugs, that all cultures indulge in and develop, food, marriage, burial rituals, right? Like some of those things are the most of what cults control, because human beings are really bad at being pure and perfect, right? And in a cult, they need to keep you always striving, always working on yourself, always trying to improve. This is also why dance and arts and exercise programs can become very culty. This is why the entrepreneurship of always going up and to the right, always making more money and growing gets into culty. And the sacrifice of the purity rules, and by the way, the leader never has to follow them, right? But the self-sacrifice is part of how we break people down. And one of the reasons we see so much self-unaliving in cults, Mormons about 7-8-year-old is when they start reporting it. For Children of God, it was between 4 and 6. Is because it's really, really hard to live in a state of tamping down your humanness all of the time. And always, always, always being for the group. So yeah, I do have lots of things to keep my plate full. I am this summer scripting a musical, getting the book through the whole process of production. At some point I'll be recording an audiobook too. But also working on the musical script a bit so that I can have something to show to a possible interested production partner. And then I've pulled out Un-American and dusted it off, and I'm starting to think about what it's going to take for me to devote myself to writing the rest of my memoir, Deconstructing Power and Privilege and Whiteness and Otherness, and what it means to be an American. And after that, I'll do my novel series, Daughters of God, which is 5 generations of mothers and daughters that come under religious extremism. Also, at some point, I'm going to write a book called Every Tom, Dick, and Harry, and it's going to be like a historical fiction account of the patriarchy as though the Richards were real men. So that's going to be exciting. Just the research books for that alone that I have are very, very fun. Oh boy, I have okay, I'm gonna have to go because I have a pedicure soon with my BFF. So long, farewell. I'll be the thing of you. Okay. See you tomorrow for more jewelry homework. The name, it does come from Richard. Yeah. I don't know why. but it does.